Hello, welcome to today's session, The Nonlinear Path of Healing. Sometimes, before we can reach calm or resolution, there needs to be turbulence, disruption, and expression. Our ability to navigate our own distress is the gift that will transform our experience. My name's Natalia Rachel. I'm a therapist, writer, and consultant, and I'm the founder of Illuma Health. We focus on the link between mental and relational health, trauma recovery, and employee mental health and wellbeing programs. Now, if you haven't already done so, I invite you to take a moment to orient completely to this time and space that is for you and not for anybody else. A place where there's nothing to achieve, no one to manage or care for, and where it's okay to be, feel, and express in any way at all. No judgment. Close your WhatsApp, your Messenger, Teams, email, and be present. Not because I need your attention, but because you are choosing this time for you from a place of deep self-respect. Be aware of the room that you're currently in, the seat that you're sitting in, the expression currently on your face, and any emotion that you might be feeling. And of course, be aware of your breath in your body. And tune into my voice and all the words that I'm going to say. Through today's session, I'll be asking you to self-inquire and illuminate your experiences. So make sure you have your paper and pen ready. Some of the questions I ask might be confronting, but stay with the process. Be curious and honest. The topics that we're going to cover today are the 5 agents of healing. These are what will get you through and beyond this time. Then we're going to talk about fragmentation, boundaries, one of my favorite topics, self-abandonment and the fawn response, and the survival state of freeze. We'll finish the session by creating your own personal healing map. Some of what I share, it just might click immediately, and some will integrate in moments beyond this time. So I invite you to let your mind be open to integrate in its own way and its own time, without placing too much force on your process. Let's simply explore. The world has really changed, hasn't it? As individuals and as a humanity, we've had to adapt. The old survival strategies of running at full steam, avoiding our feelings and grinning and bearing it are no longer an option, not in this new world. In order to survive and thrive, to recover and reclaim ourselves, we have to return to the essence of our humanness and aliveness. This is something that I learned through my own journey of personal mastery, recovering from childhood trauma, mental health misdiagnosis, and a physical health condition that spanned over a decade and actually nearly killed me. I was so fragmented. I spent years in complete overwhelm and burnout, and more years just trying to find a way to recover. I had no idea what was happening to me or how to shift it. I really hope that what I'm about to share redirects you swiftly to a path of healing. Healing's complex, it's non-linear, and it's incredibly personal. But there are 5 essential ingredients that all of us need and can tap into. You might want to write these down. Vulnerability, empathy, expression, curiosity, and connection. This work requires bravery. Bravery is born through befriending our fears, opening our hearts, and speaking our truth. So that's what I'm going to do today, lead by embodied example. I won't be hiding behind a pretty deck or impressive stats, science, or audience polls. I'm simply going to share with you my deeply personal stories and some of the things that I've learned along the way. I truly believe that it's through this kind of vulnerable sharing and connection that shame dies and healing begins. Let's talk about fragmentation. With all the many roles we take on in life, there is always pressure to perform, to belong, and to adapt. We pack away the parts of ourselves that aren't helpful to our roles, and we smile and we do an excellent job most of the time. Many of us don't go back to tend to these aspects or fragments of ourselves that have been packed away in order to be the good parent, the great lover, the kind friend, the good child, or the inspiring or supportive manager or leader. Over time, this becomes a huge problem. Either we feel totally disconnected, or those parts of us that have been packed away start leaking out, or in some cases, screaming or raging. After 2 years now of living in a COVID world, the pressure, the performance, the warrior-like strength is becoming unmanageable for many of us, myself included. Many of us are reaching breaking points where fragmentation is no longer sustainable. We are exhausted. We are emotional. We are overwhelmed. We are more easily triggered. And we have depleted the resources we have to continue to pretend that everything's okay. Everything is not okay. It can be really terrifying to admit that we don't have it all together, that we're struggling. Time for our first self-inquiry. Are you fragmented? I'm going to pose some questions. Please notice how many you answer yes to. First of all, do you ever smile on the outside, but feel like you're crying on the inside? Do you ever have an urge to scream at the top of your lungs, but you don't? Do you ever wish you could just stay in bed all day and hide under the blankets, but force yourself to get up each day? Do you ever have an urge to pack up and leave and live on a mountain or by the sea, but you get up every day and go to work or look after the kids? Do you find yourself having emotional outbursts, angry rants, spontaneous crying? Do you ever feel like the you that the world sees is different from the you inside? How many of these things are you experiencing? 1, 2, 3, more? These are all signs of fragmentation and overwhelm. This new world we're navigating has taken us beyond our capacity to cope. Now, if you are watching this session as a recording, you might like to take time now to pause and continue your self-inquiry, either through your own journaling practice or in conversation if you're in a group. And when you're ready, you can press play again and we can continue the session. Let's now talk about boundaries. Insufficient boundaries lead to burnout, physical and mental health conditions, and harmful relationships. Learning to set boundaries changed my life, and it can change yours too, especially now when many of our boundaries are blurring and shifting. We need to consciously take control of the way we engage in the world. In October 2020, I started to notice the familiar telltale signs of burnout. Let me paint you a little picture. 10 months into COVID, seeing trauma clients who were extra traumatized, running the clinic, rolling out COVID-safe measures, going through a divorce, exiting from a business partnership, trying to be a mum to 2 small kids facing their own distress and displacement, and trying to date amongst it all. It was too much. I cracked. I was exhausted, crying every night, digestive issues, and getting headaches. I was starting to burn out. but I didn't allow it to happen. I set a boundary with the world. With little notice, I took 2 weeks off work. I cancelled my clients, my workshops, and speaking engagements. And I loved myself back to some sense of equilibrium. Setting a boundary and creating a circuit break, in my experience, was an act of self-love rather than self-abandonment. It was a huge moment in my journey of self-mastery. I've restructured a lifetime of conditioning in that moment where I chose me. I did not allow my shame, my type A tendencies, or my fear of failure and judgment to drive me. I sat with my distress and I chose my health and well-being above all. This allowed me to survive, to thrive, and to continue to surf the COVID wave rather than be swept away by the current. When we don't set boundaries, we will be more tired, ignoring our instincts and desires, internally resentful, more easily triggered, emotionally overwhelmed. This can look either like not being able to feel anything at all, or not being able to manage our emotions and having inappropriate outbursts. Who resonates? It's time for our next self-inquiry. What are your boundaries with the world like? Take a moment to write down your responses to my questions. Are you listening to your signals telling you to slow down and to self-care, or are you ignoring them? And if so, why? Why are you ignoring them? What is your biggest trigger that just takes you over the edge? What is the emotion that is most prevalent when your boundaries are not intact? Is it anger, sadness, confusion, something else? Do you get physical sensations with these experiences? Your answers are fodder for you to start working with your boundaries and your triggers. This can be incredibly transformational and something to explore deeper after this session. Now, if you're watching this session as a recording, you might like to take some time to pause and continue your self-inquiry either through journaling or through discussion if you're in a group. And when you're ready, you can press play and continue. One of the biggest blocks to setting boundaries and self-caring is our tendency to self-abandon. Answer this. How often do you put your own health and well-being second to something else? Family, a client, a friend, a project? How often do you say, I'll be fine, I'll manage. That other person is more important. Their needs must come first. 20%, 50%, 70% more? This is self-abandonment. In trauma terms, we call it the fawn response. The fawn response is our tendency to put another person's needs before our own, or keep quiet and not share how we feel in order to keep the peace. We may have a fawn response because we've learned it through family or cultural influences that have told us that it's bad to put ourselves first, it's wrong, or that to help others makes us a really good person. Another reason we might have a fawn response is if we've experienced childhood trauma. Either there's been a volatile parent that's taken up all the space and we've learned that our needs don't matter. Or when we have expressed needs in the past as children, they've been met with shaming, anger, or physical abuse, which is my story and likely many of yours. If we are fawners, we will be unconsciously terrified to set boundaries, say no, ask for what we need, and say how we really feel. We also tend to hold on to a lot of resentment and not having our needs met, which can lead to bitterness and feeling unmet in our relationships and also by the world at large. This needs to change or nothing else will. We need to take back our power, find our voice and reclaim our right to be here, to express ourselves and to choose the life that we want. Who is resonating with this topic? This personal inquiry can be incredibly confronting. So rather than unpack it further here in this session, I'd like to invite you to take it out of this session into your lives. Start to notice every time you don't express your truth. Challenge yourself to speak up. You may also like to watch the feelings that come up when you even think about opening your mouth. For me, this part of the journey brought up so much anxiety. Every time I would go to speak my truth, I would be riddled with anxiety. And part of the healing was noticing that, processing that, and then speaking up anyway. This is big work, and it takes time to integrate. When we don't set boundaries, when we fragment and fawn, we shift towards a freeze state. When we can no longer fight or flight, we freeze, hide, or shut down until the danger passes. I know the freeze state very well because I lived for most of my life in it. And it's what led me to mental health misdiagnosis, severe physical illness, pain, medications, aggressive intravenous treatments, and near death. My freeze started as a result of childhood trauma and prolonged exposure to physical and emotional threat. I froze in order to survive a chronic state of danger. And I stayed frozen, living a strange half-life for nearly 30 years. A life where it felt like I'd walked into the wrong storybook. It wasn't until I went on a journey healing my trauma and adopting healing as a way of life that everything began to change. I'm so far away from that old version of myself, and I'm so grateful for my life and my healing. And it is a continuous lived process. The same freeze survival instinct that I'm talking about is what is starting to switch on inside many of our nervous systems now as we navigate this global pandemic, global trauma. The thing is that the danger doesn't seem to be passing anytime soon. And we're not designed to survive forever. In order to prevail, we must find ways to increase our feelings of safety and evolve, transcend beyond the threat. This is what self-mastery is all about. It's time for our final self-inquiry. Are you in a freeze state? I'm going to share some of the telltale signs that we're entering a freeze state. I shared about this on LinkedIn recently, and it was my most reshared post ever. If you recognize that you have 3 or more symptoms, this means a change is required now so that you do not shift towards total shutdown like I did. So let me know, have a think about if you're experiencing any of these. Apathy, depression, being quick to cry, fatigue or low energy, not motivated to work, finding it hard to engage with others or needing to be alone a lot, constipation in your stomach, low blood pressure, zoning out, brain fog. How many are you experiencing? If you're watching the recording of this session, you might like to take time to pause and continue your self-inquiry and consider if you have any signals of freeze state. And when you're ready, you can press play and continue. Let's now look at some solutions to freeze. There are 4 clear actions required. Reflect as I talk and write down the actions you can take. This is the foundation for your personal healing map. Number 1, express a boundary. Take something off your plate. It might be dropping a project, letting go of a social commitment, forgetting about homeschooling, or ordering a meal plan. What is one thing that you can take off your plate right away? Can you take a few things off your plate? Give yourself permission now. Number 2, show yourself some empathy. Create time for self-care. The key to true self-care is that it must be non-outcome oriented. We spend so much time trying to reach a goal or check off a to-do list. When it comes to self-care, the goal must be to have no goal. This can feel very foreign. Can you find 1 hour a week or 2 or 3 to create a no work and no goal zone for yourself? Consider your schedule. Write down when this would be. Block your calendar now. And if you are sitting there scoffing and thinking, I can't do that, work is too important, I've got too much to do, I invite you to self-inquire. Why is work or anything else more important than your health and well-being? I'm here to tell you that you are more important than anything else. It is not selfish to self-care. It is self-abandoning not to self-care. Your boundaries and your health are your responsibility. Now, if you had an hour just for you, what would you do? Would you go swimming, take a walk in the sun, listen to a meditation app, cook something fabulous? If you could choose something nurturing, what would it be? Write it down. Number 3, be curious or creative daily to activate your life force. When we're entering freeze, we lose access to curiosity and creativity. These are a human expression of aliveness or life force. Cultivating these consciously can be a game changer. It could look like seeking 5 new things on your morning walk, reading an interesting article each day, looking at beautiful art, listening to new music, or even painting, singing, dancing, or writing. What would you do? Write it down. Number 4, reach out, be vulnerable, and connect. We need each other to recover. This is a biological and neurophysiological truth. When we're babies, we need connection, care, touch, kind voices, and mirroring in order to develop and thrive. In fact, we need this throughout our lives, but even more so in times of uncertainty or stress, like right now. Who are the people that make you feel safe? Who are the people who light you up, inspire you, teach you? Write down their names. After this session, reach out to them. Who are the people that you facilitate in your life? Who are you making feel safe, inspiring, lighting up, and teaching? Write down their names. Reach out to them too. We must learn to both give and receive. Now, in front of you, you should now have a personalized healing map. And this map taps into the 5 agents of healing that I shared earlier at the beginning of the session: vulnerability, empathy, expression, curiosity, and connection. Now, I'd like you to close your eyes for a moment and take a lovely breath into your whole body. Feel your feet on the floor. If they're not on the floor, can you place them on the floor? Knowing that the effects of this session will trickle out gently over time. It's already happening. I'd like to thank you for choosing to be here and encourage you to continue choosing yourself every day. If there's one thing the nonlinear path of healing asks of us, it's to keep coming home to ourselves. So take another breath into your whole body, and as you exhale, set that intention. And if you like, you can keep your eyes gently closed to listen to my final thoughts. And you may even like to bring your hands and breath to your heart space as an act of self-compassion as you listen. Through your intention, you can activate your healing right now and every day, and watch as small changes lead to big changes that transform your ability to survive and thrive through and beyond this time. You'll notice more energy, less triggers or more mastery of them, an increased sense of empathy for yourself and others. and a growing sense of internal peace that is less easily disturbed by external forces. This is a starting point. It takes time, so be gentle with yourself. And if, as you continue to self-inquire beyond this session, you feel that you need support, please reach out. Every time you reach out, you're accessing all 5 healing agents in the process. In fact, reaching out may be the biggest gift you can give yourself and the swiftest way to ignite transformation. If you still have your eyes closed, take one more deepened breath, and as you exhale, allow them to open and orient to the room around you and be aware of your feet on the floor. And thank yourself for showing up. Healing has been accessed simply through your presence and your intention. Thank you for tuning into today's session. If you'd like to connect, you can scan the QR code or reach out via email, LinkedIn, or Instagram.